Paroa for inviting us here for the next 3 days in this seminar workshop for transforming government operations, understanding the dynamics of digitalization in government processes. I was one of the lucky government servants in 2021, I think. But unfortunately, we did not go to Australia for that short course on business process management in re-engineering the government processes under Australia Award. So we had BPM for re-engineering the government processes online because of the pandemic. But I guess what are the things that we learned in that short course would be beneficial for us, particularly of what had we experienced for the past 2 years. So my presentation this afternoon will focus on e-government imperative for transformation in the public sector. So generally, when we talk about e-government, sometimes it is used interchangeably with e-governance. Maybe for the rest of you, since we are a big crowd, I can give PowerPoint presentation to the organizer so that you can have the copy. Since some of you cannot see the presentation, particularly those who are seated back. So generally, when we talk about e-government, sometimes it is used interchangeably with e-governance. However, there would always be a distinction between the two terms. So generally, when we say about e-government, there should be more emphasis to government than the E, or electronic. I'm sorry for the two guys here focusing on information technology and information system information management. Actually, they are our collaborators in the College of Arts and Sciences, particularly the Department of Social Sciences and the Department of Mathematics are collaborating with the College of Information Communication Technology on how can we help government agencies and local government units on this. But we are trying to use the tools they have in order to improve the context of our processes in our respective organizations, particularly including the local government units. So with the rise of information society, it has led us to major changes, particularly in the interactions of the government agencies, government organizations to the citizens, and as well as change the expectations of our citizens toward our government and the demands of these citizens to our government institutions should be addressed by our respective organizations in terms of reform in the structure and in the delivery of our services. In this seminar, we'll be focusing on the frontline services. Sorry, my throat is set, but I am negative for COVID. It's just like that the mask that I'm wearing is triggering some problems in my throat. So when we talk about the structure and the processes, it's always anchored to the demands of our clients in public service. These are the individuals who often go into our respective offices, trying to seek some important information in the case of those into library and information science, in the case of the archivist, for those in the regular sections particularly, and in whatever levels of the government agencies. It's important that we need to restructure our organization and the processes that we deliver. So we need still to highlight the government in the e-government because it is the very foundation of why we are in our respective offices. That's our institution. So we focus more on the government side, and then we try to use the available resources that we have and the available information technology infrastructure that we have. It does not need to be costly. There are applications, I believe Sir Shem will introduce to you some available resources and applications that we can use in order to fast track and to make the processes easier to our clients. So just a comparison, I mentioned earlier about e-government and e-governance. So there should be basic comparison about these two because it is often used interchangeably. So in terms of the nature, when we talk about e-government, it's because it's an institution. We are focusing into the system. And when we talk about e-governance, it's the function. We are focusing on the function of that institution, of the government. So, in terms of how we use communication as a tool, then it's a one-way communication on the part of e-government. Why? Because we are the one structuring and building our institution. We are the one offering our services to the public. When we talk about e-governance, it's a two-way communication protocol. Why? When we talk about governance, it's the process. It's the function. And when we talk about process, there should be interactions among stakeholders, among clients, among citizens, and other sectors, including business organizations, who are transacting business in their respective agencies, in their respective offices. So, for those who are into public administration, in governance, if you're familiar with the term governance, it should be interactions among sectors of government in order for them to advance their interests and at the same time mediate their own interests. So, in this case, in e-governance, we are using the tool in order for us to advance the interests of our stakeholders and to interact with them. The reason why it's a two-way process. Try to think at the earlier stage of ICT age in the Philippines as a tool, it's still one way before. You cannot comment, you cannot reply to the information that these government agencies are posting in the respective website. I don't know how often our clients would still use the interface of our website. Somehow in 1990s, I think we had already government portals. I was elementary back then. And there are some government websites that are not often maintained, nor in some respects, they're not updated. And sometimes more and more people will try to look into the Facebook pages of these government agencies rather than the website because they believe the information is more updated on the Facebook pages and other social media accounts of our government agencies. So what's the aim? The aim of e-government is to use ICT applications to support our government operations. We are doing this already. It promotes citizen awareness in terms of the delivery of public services. Whereas, when we talk about e-governance, it's the use of ICT in enhancing the range and the quality. Because we are talking about the process. So, the effectiveness and the efficiency of the quality of services that we are delivering to the public. So, in general, the impact of e-governance at its broadest level would simply want to make better government, better delivery of services to the public. That enables better policy outcomes, higher quality services, greater engagements with the citizens, more interactions from various stakeholders, and by improving other key outputs identified by your respective organization. So whatever those key outputs, and nandyan po siya sa ating, at the end of the year, the performance, the performance that we have. So what are the key outputs that we want? So whatever is that, we need to engage in more interactions with not only our colleagues, but of course with the citizens and the public, particularly our clients. So the outputs that we have based on our performance is the basis of the BBB. So just a quick run through of the development of the ICT strategies and the policies in the Philippines. In this case, at least the development of ICT is quite older than me. In the case of the development of ICT in the Philippines, it started in 1986. So from 1986 to 1992, it's more confined in Article 2 of our present Constitution, 1987 Constitution, on matters related to communications and information. That it says that it acknowledges the role of and the use of communications and information technology in nation building. And the action agenda that is related to this provision is we are a younger institution, a younger democracy by then. So we are just rebuilding our democracy and the government through leveraging ICTs. After we had the transition to the current constitution that we have. So it's more on building institutions, and it's more on the transitioning into the present kind of democracy that we have. And in 1992 to 1998, now we have the Department of Transportation and Communication, the Department of Trade and Industry, and the National Telecommunications Commission. And some of these agencies are merged already at present and have reorganized themselves. So we have instituted and established these agencies that would lead us in the National Information Technology Plan for the 21st century. It transforms our mindset after building or rebuilding our democracy with the vision that the Philippines is a newly industrialized country and Asia's knowledge center, in which this is the aim of the Ramos administration, to try to look into the future, supposedly, of delivering of the government services. So we have the National Information Technology Plan that is primarily handled by these agencies. And what's our action agenda during this time? To develop human capital, particularly technical and professional individuals that would support the manpower of the Philippines and for private sector in terms of technology related competencies. At the same time, to absorb quality workforce in the government service that would help the government deliver its services to the public using ICT. And with the thrust of investing more on research and development that should be impactful for all sectors. And then to try to partner with the industry and the private sector. So it is during the time of President Noynoy Aquino, then later on the President Duterte about the PPP, that you heard the term. But of course, the target and the action agenda even started during the time of Ramos, that we intended to partner with the industry and private sector in preparing our ICT infrastructure and expand telecommunications infrastructure to increase access to information among the stakeholders. And then later on, we had enacted the Public Telecommunications Policy Act of the Philippines in the year 1995 to liberalize the market. And as mentioned earlier, in 1998 to 2001, it's a time where we are already trying to immerse ourselves with the advancement of technology. So we have the implementing agency, Information Technology and Electronic Commerce Council. It is where in 2000 that we had adopted the E-Philippines Strategy Government Information Systems Plan with the vision to improve the quality of living using ICT. And then the focus here is to provide human resources for IT services. It is the time where we had started to accept locators for business processing outsourcing companies. We further promoted ICT diffusion in government, in community development, and education. We had tried to promote ICT in terms of using the infrastructure in all our government institutions and in the processes of the government. And during this period, we tried to advance and pass the E-Commerce Act and institutionalize the Government Information Systems Plan. So, if you try to look at the development, we are actually and carefully planned what the government should be in phase by phase, transforming the quality of the government processes and the government services that we deliver to the public. In 2001-2010, the Commission on Information and Communications Technology was then attached to the Department of Science and Technology, in which that particular commission had helped in developing and crafting the Philippine Strategic ICT Roadmap. That's 2006 to 2011. And try to make Filipino citizens and other stakeholders more empowered using ICT. And the agenda is to push a greater or more diffusion through development of relevant content and access. It is where our local governments had started as well, establishing and developing their respective websites. And unfortunately, for several years now, if you try to look at the data in our local government units, most of them still have the data of the first year that they had established their portals or their websites. The information that you get is still the information that they had encoded in 2000. So hopefully they can catch up. Then one item in the action agenda is to develop infrastructure for cyber services in terms of business development. And more, we try to develop more human capital and try to institutionalize e-government fund. And we had also tried to set up the Philippine Digital Strategy to empower or empowered by the ICT and the other related technology in connecting and in networking in order for us to connect all the government agencies and connect more with the people and the business sector in order for us to deliver efficient public services. So we have the creation of the Department of ICT and the National Broadband Network. And then with the use of ICT, we are projecting that we have the government that is more transparent than before. And then we have developed ICT industry and business innovation. And we also leverage ICT to promote digital inclusion and digital literacy. So with that plan to diffuse ICT in all levels of government services, we are also doing a job in terms of promotion of digital literacy. Because again, what's the use of ICT if our population or the greater number of our citizens do not know how to use this technology? We are trying to make the transaction easier, but in some cases we observe that our citizens are getting hard time to process because it's hard for them to figure out what to do with the applications available to them. So with that case, in 2010 to 2016, we have a partnership of Department of Science and Technology, Information and Communications Office to develop the national strategy related to e-government master plan. It's more on how to empower and integrate government agencies' processes in order to provide a more responsive, a more transparent, online citizen-centered services for a globally competitive Filipino nation. It enables our government agencies to achieve what we call good governance goals, particularly in the operations related to efficiency, related to transparency, accountability. These are 3 of the 8 prescriptions of good governance stipulated by the Asian Development Bank. So with that, according to the framework, we have we can achieve greater transparency, efficiency, and accountability if we have e-government and e-governance framework that we are following in the delivery of basic services. Why? In face-to-face transaction, there is an element of who are your friends, but in online transaction, the system is predefined, pre-programmed. So it eliminates the human relationship of several individuals who can affect negatively on the transaction in the business of the government. So with the advancement of technology and adoption of the government agencies in their respective processes, it eliminates the concept that you are favoring somebody in terms of transaction. Because again, you have your own queue and you are just doing it on your own. The only problem is, in some cases, there are individuals who do not know what to do next. Or they don't have emails in which most of our information that we get from them when they apply for a certain documents, for example, that they want. So we need emails. And in relation to this, I found out also that most of our government agencies are not using their government emails. I believe there are government agencies subscribed as a domain email. And there are some experiences that I had when it transact business with some government agencies, and using that domain email, they are not responsive. Why? They are still using the first email that they had since 2000, and that's yahoo.com.ph. In some cases, it's yahoo.com. Of course, it's Sir Shem and Sir will agree with me na it's prone to spam. You will be one of the targets of those who can scam you.
Pero ang BP na may
Spam
sarili.
emails.
Namday sarili.
So, maximize the use of the government portals that we have. It increases the legitimacy of the document and the information that you
Namday
need.
intranet.
So in that case, I tried to use the yahoo.com and somebody replied. So we are still adjusting siguro on the processes, but it's part of the transformation. And though we are trying to adjust, and though we are still familiarizing ourselves on the dynamics of information technologies applied to government services, this one had fast-tracked our approaches to e-governance. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. We are trying to set up the groundwork and the framework, infrastructure for ICT, and then we have COVID-19. We have several, I think, two decades of preparation. Kaya mo lang in how many months, no? We have been planning, preparing, reviewing, but it's just having a COVID-19 pandemic that we are able to adjust everything. Of course, there are problems that we cannot solve outrightly. Pero we have nothing to do but to adjust instantly, because government services should continue. The reason why you have business continuity plan for the government, for the business sector, and for the government sector, we have public service continuity plan. And a reliance to the ICT must be coupled with what would be our course of action should there be power interruption. Should there be hazards that would challenge the effectiveness and efficiency of the delivery of our basic services, of our trust in our respective agencies. So the reason why it should be calculated also in your public service continuity plan. At how many hours can you restore services after typhoon, after an earthquake? So how can you replicate the kind of office that you have when a particular hazard would strike and result in disaster? So in this case, before we are saying that we don't have the framework on how to address COVID-19 pandemic. But we forget, we have Republic Act 10-121, DRM Act in the Philippines. Because pandemic is leading us into disaster. So the framework of DRM in the Philippines can be used. So siguro nalipat nata because we just want to focus on health. Kasi sabi natin pag health, dapat health din ang framework. Siguro in this case, we have learned already how to integrate health lens in our processes and ICT. Because before, our framework is ICT, government services, government institution, government agencies. And then, let the health experts and health professionals deal with health-related problems and health-related literacy, health-related solutions. But we learned so much from this pandemic that it's ICT, government institution, government processes, plus health lens. We need to focus that. Because again, without the pandemic, because we have already adjusted to multiple meetings and multiple tasks assigned to us, then it's already putting the employees, public servants in general, in so much pressure that would lead them to some problems related to their mental health. So in the government processes, it should be also integrated. So again, let's not forget health lens plus ICT plus our government agencies trust, and then processes. So since the topic is talking about the government imperative, so what are the things that we need to focus on, and what are the benefits that we get from this, and what are the realities that confront us that we need to address? So e-government promises us to improve the efficiency of our services to the public. Because before, with so many steps that we would assign to our clients, several days probably. But of course, we have the ARTA. We promised na in this particular period, you finish your transaction. Pero merong mga makukulit na clients ng government na from time to time would call and would give feedback without knowing that it's the process and they want to be prioritized. Sabi nga namin in public administration governance, we have health governance na in health, hindi ka dapat magagalit kung hindi ka masyado pinaprioritize doon sa admitting section or sa emergency room because you're not dying yet. Di ba? Sa emergency cases. So, inuuna yung mga malapit na mamatay or in danger na mga at risk, more risk na ang inaharap ng mga pasyente. So that's the framework. Diba? So medyo dapat i-relief ka, kaso lang nagpapaling yung mga tao. So still in the government, we try to prioritize supposedly mas nangangailangan. Reason why, diba, meron tayong priority lanes. Pero yung iba hindi pa rin nakaintindi, doon pa rin pumipila. Yung iba pag i-cater mo yung mga senior citizens, nagre-reklamo yung mga younger individuals kasi akala nila sinisingit. See, they don't know the framework that you're doing. But of course, in this case, blind si e-government. Whoever you are, whatever you are, you transact business with us, we process everything for you. So if ang concept is business process management that I am talking to you earlier is that while the process is ongoing, there is a feedback na ano na yung status, ano na yung level ng transaction mo, kailan na siya ma-deliver sa'yo, particularly frontline services. Yung familiar with Lazada, familiar with the Shopee, di ba? Nakikita nyo saan na yung binili nyo. In the case of online transactions, meron na siyang phase or stage na kailan na siya i-deliver. So, supposedly, we are trying to advance that idea, that business process management in our government. And we call it business process if it cut across other divisions within your agency. Hindi ka magkakaroon ng isang business process sa isang office lang siya. Dapat it is within the transactions of 2 or 3 na mga divisions or departments in your agency level. So nalalaman nila saan ang kanilang request, kailan na nila ma-avail. So it improves our services. It helps also achieve the specific policy outcomes and contribute to economic policy objectives. Generally, because ang investment ay nasa first time lang na mag-invest kayo ng infrastructure. And the rest, if you have IT people, it's just maintenance. So you just engage your employees and members of your organizations to achieve more competencies related to ICT so that you will no longer hire third-party provider on IT-related services. So it can be also a major contributor in reforming your agency's processes. In some cases kasi, there are some processes na pwede pala na skip ang process. But because we are used to that process, akala na that's the best thing that we are doing. So if you feel na the process is working, you try still to review the process. Because hindi pwede na the process will remain for several years. There should be changes in the process because government service and the demands of the public is ever changing. It continues to change because as
Every year,
technology
mag-improve ang
advances,
process.
ang tao hirap na maghintay. No? Nahihirapan sa maghintay, lagi na lang naghihintay. So they need feedback. Sometimes they're not already actually they are not na hindi sila marunong maghintay. They just want feedback. Pero if you keep informing them about the steps and the process and the stages that they are going through in terms of online transactions, you would be happy. Kasi akala nila pinapabayaan lang natin pag wala tayong information na binibigay sa kanila. At the same time, in reforming our processes using ICT, we can evade the repeated transactions and unaccomplish na requirements. That would sometimes add to the problems of other individuals who are transacting in our agencies. Kasi for example, yung nakapila, hindi complete yung requirements. May kulang information. Alis siya, babalik siya. Sometimes mag-ask siya ng questions. Yung mga nakapila, nagka-club. So we try to log those things. Saan ba dapat tayo mag-work out ng mabuti in terms of process natin? Para ma-address natin yung issue. But you find natin where in that process, medyo nagka-club. Merong mga red flags. BPM have been used in prime HRM. It's the framework, prime HRM, for those working into human resource management. I believe St. Luke's Hospital, nag-employ sila ng business process management in terms of the delivery of the services to the public, to their clients. Nalalaman mo kailan i-release yung results ng laboratory mo, email sila or may message sila. Sino yung doctor na available. Pagpunta mo, yun na talaga yung queue mo for the doctor. So hindi masasayang yung time mo. So that's the thing that we need to accomplish. And in some people, akala nila mahirap gawin. Pero if you know your process and you know your client, may imagine mo na siya kung saan dito nagkakaproblema. Ang value lang ng time cycle ang kailangan ni malaman. So in e-government promises efficiency. So what we are trying to explore lang dapat is we know the process. We know the requirements. Kasi pag online, hindi magpo-proceed sa next phase if your information is incomplete. If your documents are incomplete. Which always happen if it's face-to-face. But it does not necessarily mean na kailangan natin magbawas ng tao because nag-employ na tayo ng ICT tools and technology. Like, hindi naman pwedeng magbawas ng tao. Because again, we cannot deny the fact na may human review na necessary in order for us to further explain what our clients would need. So, dyan na yung interaction ng individuals. However, there are barriers on this. Maraming promises. Pero ano yung barriers? Barriers, one is legislative and regulatory barriers. That can impede the uptake of e-government. Accepted natin ito. May taga-court pa dito. No, di ba? So, we accept the fact na may mga rules, particularly statutes, national laws, we observe. Kasi konti lang yung mga legislative members natin na into codifying our laws. Most of them is into creation and amendments of the law. Pero konti yung nagko-codify. That makes our lives a little bit harder because we just know that there were amendments of this particular law kung tayo nang affected. ng certain problem. So, minsan, akala natin okay because we've been into these rules and regulations, pero may mga bago na, may mga na-implement na. And sometimes, that includes fiscal matters. Nakulang yung budget, diba? For our agency to take off using ICT. So, isa to sa mga barriers. Budgetary frameworks na medyo nare-restrict yung mga initiatives. There are good and creative minds in our agencies on what to do, what to use. Ang problem is sometimes we don't have budget allotted to this, or if we have budget, meron tayong problem because it is not approved. Kung may proposal ka sa budget. And on top of that, are the legislative and regulatory barriers na sometimes specific pa rin siya sa ICT, but not integrating ICT to our government agencies na processes. Kasi nangyayari, nahihiwalay yung government na agency integration with the use of ICT. Kasi akala nila, for the ICT lang to, for the OST lang to. So, meron pa rin tayong competition ang mga government agencies sa trust nila. And they are focusing on what are the targets per year. So instead of ang focus dapat, you integrate ICT with your department or your agency's trust, but sometimes there is still disconnect. In which the primary reason that we need to have ICT is to make government agencies closer together. But I believe we can adjust on that. Baga, nakatry na tayo adjust on that part lang sa kailangan natin i-continue yung services because of COVID-19. So, kaya naman pala natin mag-adjust sa other government agencies. Let's just continue na lang and then review what are the things that we should supposed to do. Because again, the government would accept that there's a need to really integrate ICT. Hindi na separate yung framework ni ICT, separate yung framework ni DILG, separate yung framework ni ganitong agency. And governments need to prepare for technological change. Sometimes we have good individuals, programmers, for example, systems analysts. The only problem is si government naman hindi maka-ayon dun sa rapid change ng technology as advanced by our public. Hindi siya aware na ganito yung nangyayari. The reason why there is a disconnect in the policy and in the practice. There is a disconnect in the framework, in the theory, and the practices in our respective agencies. And still the problem, the digital divide that impedes benefits of e-government. Ano yung digital divide? Meron tayong ICT citizens. Ang tawag nga sa College of ICT, CI citizens. Kasi, meron tayong digital divide. May tinatawag yung digital natives, digital migrants, no? Meaning, yung digital natives, you're born on the digital age. And by that privilege, they are acquainted much of the use of technology. But there are migrants, hindi ko sinasabi ng mga matatanda, that there are digital migrants na cannot fully adjust. And they need the help of the natives. Pero yung mga digital natives na minsan, mairita. Ayaw nila yung magpulong. Kasi nahihirapan. So, ito yung nag-i-impede ng what supposed to be the benefits of e-government. Meron namang gusto nila ipaintindi, pero nagkaroon ng ang digital divide ay nag-widen because of the language. Kasi iba naman yung language ng digital natives and digital migrants. So, on implementing e-government challenges existing ways of work, exist in the ways for particularly structural and operational. Again, kasi sa government agency, balikan nga natin, you say what government is the institution, the governance is the process. It's for structure and operations. And it requires leadership. And on implementing government, e-government, seamless government services will draw agencies closer together and the government closer to the people and gains the trust of the people. And we need more managers that have e-government skills. Not necessarily na dapat mag-code sila. Not necessarily meaning na programmers sila. At least may knowledge. So that when somebody would discuss or would pitch a particular enhancement or transformation in the processes, medyo masakyan niya sa conversation. And medyo naka-adapt siya on what that individual need when he or she says na ganito yung process na dapat na gawin. Again, e-government involves public and private partnerships, particularly in infrastructure. Again, this term, public and private partnerships, mayroon din tayong disconnect dito. Kasi other people would say na basta nag-partner lang tayo sa private organization, PPP na dapat tawag natin doon. Diba? PPP in the Philippine context is for infra. But we have built, operate, transfer. So, dapat, there are terms that we need to clarify to our clients as well as to reorient our colleagues in the public sector. Para nasa same page tayo, whether we are digital natives or digital migrants. And though implementing e-government can be risky, expensive, and difficult, we don't have other choice. We need to compete. We need to adapt with the changes of time because we need to position our country to be competitive from the rest of our neighboring ASEAN economies. And monitoring and evaluation are always essential to make our government processes more effective. Again, hindi pwedeng nakasanayan na yun na ang pinaka-effective. Yun ang pinaka-efficient. So, digital government has core capabilities supported by organizational enablers. We have services, and then that services should be coupled with strategies. Ano yung mga services under your organization? Then ano yung mga existing strategies that you are using in order to deliver effectively and efficiently your services? Review. What are the bold aspirations, the concrete targets of our organizations? What are the things that we need to give more attention to address, particularly the marginal populations, the elderly, for example? And capabilities related to processes, like automation of transaction, e-health services, na transaction. So, what's the enabler part of that organization? Ang maka-enhance processes. Of course, organizational design, organizational transformation. You map directly the goals and the trust and the mandate of your respective organizations. Then, of course, always consider governance and accountability on the scale of collaboration. Because again, if you are collaborating, you gain the trust. Why? When you collaborate, you co-plan, co-create, you co-own. So, sinong may gusto na yung plano na kasama siya, yung plano na dinesign niya, na-implement, ay ma-fail? So, hindi. Kasi you will always how to make that plan be implemented, and then be successful. Kaysa i-feed directly to you. Diba? May pinapakain sa'yo na hindi mo gusto. So, ayaw ang tao. Pero if you are working with the people, then people would say na this process is indeed been designed for us. I remember a classmate, kilala din ni Sir Shen. We had a golf jam. We joined in 2020 in the Global Golf Jam. It's an online event wherein we gather different individuals coming from different perspectives, young, older generation, different professions, and to design civic applications. Not necessarily na may idea for technology. If you're familiar with design thinking, you identify the problem related to frontline services. Ano yung mga experiences? Saan nagkakaproblema? Then, paano natin gawa ng solusyon? Then you brainstorm. Walang talk. Walang technical discussions. Ito lang, open lang. Just even chat using some applications in Google. Like Google Jamboard, if you're familiar. So you just put sticky notes and then some figures, paano natin solve the problem. Then you have storyline. So, then later on, pwede nyo ibigay sa IT professional na ganito yung dapat na gusto namin processes. In that case, may participation ng public. So it does not necessarily mean na mag-lecture ka na may yung concept, may technique. But it's more on ano yung feeling ng public. Paano sila magre-report ng aberya sa proseso. Then paano supposedly isolve in their perspective. Kahit isang IT person lang ilagay mo, then they are in various perspectives. You can develop. There was a lawyer even, the lawyer na nag-join, but he is into business as well. So medyo marami siyang ideas. So sometimes it's not na ibigay mo sa IT specialist. Gawan mo ako ng app na ganito. Sometimes hindi siya makaka-relate because ang they learn is all about how to program. Sometimes there are information that they put, hindi naman pala needed. For example, may signature sa taas, may signature din sa baba. No, may name ka na sa taas, na complete name, pero sa baba, may signature of her printed name. Sometimes, at least in the case of the PSA, sa birth certificate, hindi na siya nag-expire. So, in that case, mayroon na tayong mga transformation na ginagawa. Hindi naman stagnant yung mga government agencies. Siguro, if you try to look at civil servants, kasi by batch no? Mga batch yung pumapasok, but by batch din yung lumalabas. Hindi ganun ka-diversify yung human resources ng government. Even sa universities, parang half pumapasok na din, tapos half din yung magre-retire. So medyo ang transition ng turnover naging problem. So later on siguro we can devise a strategy paano na magkaroon ng iba-ibang levels ng facing yung mga workforce natin. Para in this case, medyo may transition din yung pagpasa ng technology that we are using to our workers. Next one is in terms of decisions. We are advocating data-driven decision making. So the reason why it's important na you have the logs, you have the data. Transaction data. If you don't have that automation yet, you can just use the log sheet that we have. You can run later on with some ICT-related applications so that you can pinpoint areas to consider. Saan naglalog, saan nasa-stack up ang process, saan siya pabalik-balik. Kasi minsan, pag natingnan mo, puro lahat yung salary days ang nakalagay sa workflow, ang nakalagay sa transaction flow. Salary days, ganito lang matatapos mo yung this period. We are not accounting rainy days, stormy days, na maraming nagtatransact. So, hindi natin na-account yun. Tendency is, pag marami na silang nagtatransact sa atin pabalik-balik, pwede naman palang diretso yung process. Kasi pag maraming rework ang tawag dun sa BPN, maraming rework, mas nagka-cloud ang delivery of services. So, advanced predictive analytics, the reason why in some programs, kahit sa political science, kahit sa public administration, we are requesting colleagues from CICT to lecture one course, governance innovation, and then linear programming. The reason why sometimes our students would say, nag-polsay ako para walang math, pero sa amin maraming math. Mas kailangan na natin yan ngayon. It's data-driven, hindi lang na. Kasi pag quantitative, the generalizability of how would you address the problem, mas okay. Pero pag quali na nag-interview ka on some, medyo hindi mo siya masasaturate yung information. We use qualitative data collection and analysis in terms of this. Siguro, in terms of experiences of our clients. Pero still, the data in terms of time cycle and transactional cost, but with reference to time, hindi mo makukuha ng exact yan sa interview. Makukuha mo siya sa timestamp every time na mayroon ganyan. Pero mahirap siya sa government agencies kung gawin natin yan manually. I don't know kung sino ba sa government agencies naglalag ng ganyan. Na by step. Kahit sa university namin hindi siya nangyayari. So, hindi pa natin napapractice. Siguro if we can practice that na may log sa bawat isa, kahit hindi mo na fully automated yung processes, we can analyze saan na step nagkakaroon ng problem. In what particular step nagkakaroon ng choking points sa process. And then later on, maybe we can adjust and later on na yung pagiging pag-automate natin ng process. And data sharing. Data sharing sa government agencies. Hopefully, ang isa ng pwede natin ma-address sa government agencies ay yung trust building din. Kasi there are some agencies not trusting other government agencies. You need to accept that. Or there are some agencies gusto nilang mag-share sa other government agencies. There was one study, since devolved ang function ng social services, hindi mandated si local government unit na mag-submit ng data sa DSWD. And sometimes there is discrepancy in the processes. So merong mga study na hindi siya ma-materialize because with that certain level of autonomy granted to the local government units, medyo nagkakaroon ng discrepancy sa data.
Local o national.
Even in DNR before, we have a study on air quality. Pero at the regional level lang yung air quality assessment. Walang city and province. So paano nagkaroon ng region if there is no data from the city and the province? So still, we need to work on that. But the focus of the training in the next 3 days is more on frontline services kasi pa-iba-iba tayong agencies. So you just need to examine what are the frontline service that you think we need to focus on in seminar so that we can have a grasp of how can we improve the process. Not necessarily na we should jump instantly to automation. So, to end, government is under pressure with the COVID-19, with the advancement of technology, with our competitors in our neighboring countries and economies in Southeast Asia. but we must continue the e-government enabled reform processes. So, by that, I temporarily end the discussion and I give the floor to Sir Shem to facilitate our own assessment on the services that we are offering to so that we can level up the discussions that we can give to you by tomorrow and on the last day of the session so that we can, and we hope that we can achieve the objectives of this gathering of Parawa. Muli, magandang hapon sa lahat.